and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no district announcements or public input, so we'll move right to the non-action items, and the first one will be our reopening discussion with Mr. Carmelo.
Thank you very much. So we have a PowerPoint for you that Teresa's putting up right now, and I also passed it out, our copies. Can you go to the next slide? Can you go to the first page? There you go. Thank you. So thank you. Actually, I'll probably combine the reopening and the budget, because part of the reopening discussions that we've been having for 3 months, but especially for the last week and a half or 2 weeks, have a lot of budget implications with them and a lot of budget flavor to them. So I'll stop at one of the slides that talks about our constraints that we've been working under, and stop and give you a little budget update. It's not great, as you know. So we're getting close. It's September 2nd, and we originally had this day planned for our first PD day that we would have done our opening with all our opening day speeches and all of that, so that school could start next Wednesday. And as you know, we've moved that to be the 4 PD days moved to the Tuesday through Friday next week, with students starting on the 14th. But, this is our where we are as of today. I always like to start with a mission statement that will provide a strong educational and social foundation to graduate all students college and career ready. And so, you know, that's still our mission. It's still our ultimate goal, and we're still going to get that done this year. Although it's going to be a year like we've never had before, that's not going to stop us from making that still our accomplishment. Why are we naming this a model to launch? Well, I think I've been saying all along as we've had these, and we've been saying all along, that this has to be a fluid process, that this is going to have to be able to be adjusted, and we have adjusted it since the first one we've put out. But this model represents how we plan to start the 2021 school year, given the guidance and directives and everything that exists today, September 6, 2020. This plan certainly may need to be adjusted, and we'll be ready for that. We also know at any moment we may need to be prepared to pivot to online learning for a while. And that could happen for a variety of different reasons. I'm sure I might as well talk about this right now, because people are asking me every day. You've seen the local districts, Albany and Schenectady and Lansingburg, have all shifted to online learning. Not necessarily for all, but for a good portion. Lansingburg is grades 3 through 12, all virtual. Albany is 7 through 12, all virtual. And I think Schenectady is deciding officially tonight, but it looks like they're going to be 6th or 7th through 12, all virtual. And those decisions were motivated by the budget crisis that is looming. So I'll get to that when we do it. But we will be prepared. It could happen, I suppose, if those budget cuts do come in. But that also could happen like it did last spring, because there's a second outbreak and the governor shuts us down, or the Department of Health suggests it if we have a localized outbreak or something like that. So we'll be ready if that directive does come from wherever it comes. Unique challenges. And we added to name a few, because there's certainly dozens more, but these were the main ones. So budgetary constraints and uncertainty. So and I just talked about Lansingburg, Albany, and Schenectady, so it's a good time to stop and kind of talk about it. So what's going on? Remember the last year's budget development process, which was one of our worst, at least in recent years. Looking back now, the cuts we made then at least puts us in a little bit better position as far as money that we were able to save in the spring and that kind of thing, and the budget number that we started the year at. But at that time, there were 3 look-back periods that the governor announced and was put into law. And those look-back periods gave the governor and the Department of Budget, the ability, if revenues came in below expectations, to make up to 20% cuts to not just education, but healthcare and a number of other places. There is some back and forth if and when that happens that allows the legislators to find money elsewhere, but so far that part doesn't seem to be happening. But all that's happened right now, and it's scary, and I don't begrudge the districts who are reacting to it already, because I mean everybody is talking about it. Every superintendent meeting I'm on, they're all worried and nervous about it. But 2 weeks ago, we had our excess cost aid, which is a specific aid that we get. We always talk about foundation aid when we're in the middle of the budgets conversation, but there are other aids we get. There's transportation aid and BOCES aid and excess cost aid and textbook aid and building aid that that we work with. So there are a bunch of different categories. The excess cost aid is one of those expense-driven aids where you spend money with the expectation that you're getting a certain percentage back. I mean, think about when we sell those capital projects. We sell them because we have a great rebate rate. I don't know if that's the name of it. Reimbursement rate. Reimbursement rate. I knew it sounded funny. We have a great reimbursement rate. So, I mean, we're not selling anything wrong. We're taking advantage of what the rules are, which is for us, it's like 85, 86. And actually, last time we sold the capital project, it was up to like 88 or 89. Now, we still conservatively, I think, sold it at 85 so that we could have some wiggle room for things that might not have been aidable. But to know that every dollar we spend on a capital project like that, we're going to get 85 or 86 cents back, it really makes those things worth it. Remember, we purchased the Neff Center with that kind of agreement, so we ended up getting that for, really such a great deal because we're getting 86% of it back. Well, if that 20% cut that the state is now talking about, and was talking about earlier, but now looks like they may be acting on, includes those kinds of aids, that's really going to be, I mean, I think it's all unfair, and I've talked to the board and talked to everybody about, how I think it's unfair for districts like ours who are so dependent on aid, and it disproportionately affects the high needs, low wealth districts like ours compared to high wealth suburban districts. And at a time where everybody's talking about equity and trying to come up with equitable solutions to all the problems in the world, for the state to be disproportionately affecting districts that have poor and mainly minority students, I mean, it's contradictory to everything they're talking about. But if it's also going to include expense-driven aids that we've already spent money on expecting that money back, it's really going to be devastating. So right now, so the excess cost aid that was 2 weeks ago, it didn't call it a cut. There was a 20%, what they called it was a withholding, they called it temporary, they called it a delay. But they did say in the paperwork, if there's no federal stimulus money, then this delay could and will become permanent. And 20% will follow in other aids. Now, we haven't really been able to get guidance on, does that mean foundation aid, does that mean these expense-driven aids or anything like that. If it's foundation aid, and it really is 20% across the board, we're looking at $9 million cut. Now, I mean, that is almost a number that's hard to even say out loud. I mean, think about last year's gap that we were dealing with was $3 million and the devastation that it caused to make the cuts to get to $3 million. I mean, think about 3 times that right now in the middle of a school year or getting ready to start the school year. So again, I understand why those other districts are acting right now because they don't want 2 months from now to have that 20% be real. If it ends up being 20% of total aid, which I really can't imagine, but if it does, then we're in the $12, $13 million range. Which is why if you saw Albany's and Schenectady's, their range was 23 to 27, something like that, and that's why it is. If it's just foundation aid, it's one number. If it's all aids, it's the higher number. Again, if you read the article in the paper, I think it was over the weekend, Ken Crow called me from the Times Union and asked, what we're doing. And I think it's really important for us to get started in the school year, get kids and adults to get the chance to develop their relationships, to make their connections, get kids and adults into the normal routine of the class schedule and the class assignments and the class expectations and all of those things, so that if and when we do have to go virtual, we're more prepared. The kids are more prepared and the staff is more prepared for that, and families. So that's where we're erring right now. In my meeting with the teachers union today, they asked about the budget, and I was honest. I said, maybe I'm wrong and Albany, Stanton, and Lynchburg are correct, and they've just gotten out ahead of it. But I still think there's a chance that that federal stimulus money comes in. It is an election year, as we all know, and it's coming up quick, and I think it helps both sides to have some kind of agreement. And if that agreement comes and it's the money that Governor Cuomo is looking for, and he closes the gap and says, or closes it enough to say that 20% is not going to happen, or maybe it's going to be 4 or 5% or something like that, then we won't have to make the drastic kind of moves. But that's where we are budget-wise. Adam, I don't know if I forgot anything in all of that.
No, I think the only thing to add is that I believe the U.S. Senate comes back after Labor Day, and so nothing will happen before then, which is not too far off, obviously, but that we're being told, wait until mid to end September, and we should know much, much more, and what direction we'll need to go.
Right, so that is what I wanted to add, so thank you for adding that. So the late September, besides the fact that the Senate's back, Mr. Oldtown has told me late September is a big number because that's when our first real big foundation aid money should come. That portion of it comes at different times throughout the year, but September is one of our big chunks. So if that big chunk has 20% and the wording is not as temporary delay, hold for now kind of language, then we'll have a better idea of where we are. But we'll keep you posted. We have already called John McDonald like we always do. Miskis and Misbah have already been out there kind of fighting it. I have not yet reached out to all of them. I will, like I did the last time. They did answer the last time, and they did acknowledge that the discrepancy and the unfairness to it and the inequities of it all. But I will just remind them again sometime in the next week or so. Questions on the budget? I know it's not good information, but
are we prepared? Like if we get in the next check and it's 20% and it doesn't sound like it's anything, like it does sound positive, are we prepared just to say, okay, everybody stay home tomorrow?
Well,
it wouldn't
I don't think we ever do that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be tomorrow. Sorry, I'll let you answer in a minute, but it wouldn't be tomorrow if that happens. We're in a good cash flow position right now, so we wouldn't have to make any immediate decisions like, oh my God, everybody, you stay home starting tomorrow. If it looks like, the third week in September or fourth week in September, whatever that, we really start getting an idea. If the Senate does come back and they're still having a stalemate in the two groups and it looks like nothing's going to happen, then one of our options certainly will be to go virtual. Now, the other districts haven't really explained how virtual is saving them money, but I mean, some of them have. It's because they're able to close up their buildings, non-instructional staff are not needed. It's not just you miraculously save money. You save money by laying off people, as we know from last year's budget development process. So it's a way to still have instruction happen without having all the ancillary things. So we're not ready. I mean, we don't have a list of $9 million if that's what you were asking. No, we don't have that. But we do have, again, a pretty good cash flow position right now. And we have some money that we've encumbered for COVID expenses. Some of those are things that we need if people are here, and if they're not going to be here, we can, you know, reduce some of that. So, but it's going to be people, and it's going to have to be a lot of people if there's $9 million.
Right, as we've talked about, there's really 2 or 3 different plans that we're going to have to develop, and it's difficult to do it. If the number's 2 million or 10 million, those are 2 very different plans. If we're virtual or come January, we're all on the verge of maybe coming back more and more and more. Those are 2 very different plans. So I hate to think that the solution is we're going virtual when we should be coming back. So we're going to have to figure that out. As a district, we've done, I think, a good job over the last number of years putting money in reserves, trying to plan for this. We're not, going to lose one aid payment and all of a sudden have no cash. So that's a good thing. And I think we'll have to take the first, few months of the school year to really get through it and say, how are we going to do this going forward? So I think we're going to have to come back to the board with our plans and say, if this is how we need to go. If that, this is how we need to go. And we're going to put our heads together and come up with the best solution
I think
possible.
that's the answer to the question that I was asking.
Yeah.
That eventually you're gonna have to present us
with
something that.
Yeah, this will be, we'll have a budget, development, probably a few meetings where we're really talking about all the different options. And so remember, we talked about, when we were having those cuts that nobody was happy with last spring, should we use another $1 million in fund balance? And we said, listen, you can't do that. You have to have money for, and I know when I said, you have to save it for a rainy day, and people said, isn't it pouring? Well, $9 million cut
That's
next month is pouring. So that's where, some of that money that we have put in reserves will help us get through that. And the decisions that we'll have to make, we don't have to get into it too much anymore right now, but certainly we'll answer any of your questions. But the decision will be, are there things this year that we need to cut, which will obviously be yes, but how many of those and how many do we get through this year, and the cuts are really for the next year? That'll be the balancing act that the board and the administration will all have to talk about, and it's probably going to be a combination of both those things, right? We'll spend a little bit of money to get through this year, have this amount of cuts, depending on, again, is it 2 million or 10 million, so we don't really have those answers yet, but also, then we also have to make some cuts going into the next budget development cycle, so that next year we're also in a good place. I mean, this isn't going to be, I don't think, a 1-year problem. It seems like everybody is kind of predicting it's a 2 or 3 year budget problem for New York State.
Now, in the next budget check, do we also find out about our pre-K, universal pre-K program?
Those are all in the same mix.
All the same mix.
They're all related to a federal bill, and everyone at this point, I think, is hoping for a federal Hail Mary. I do want to say, while the numbers are bigger, we were here like 12 years ago in 2008. It was very similar conversations, and so we just don't know. It's hard to make it, to have a knee-jerk reaction when the answer is we still don't know, and in 30 days, hopefully, we'll know more. So I think we're staying the course and trying to put our heads together ahead of time to plan as best we can, not knowing even what the result will be.
I think that's the best way to do it. What if? I mean, everything's what if, what if, what if. I mean, we're living through this virus stuff, and it's, you don't know. But we gotta move forward. People have to keep living. We still gotta keep, try to get these kids in school.
I would add that programmatically and instructionally, we have the capability to go to remote. So we are ready in that regard. There's going to be, no issues with that, other than some of the ones that people have raised already, with kids logging on and things like that. But
and other than we don't think it's the best for kids,
right.
but
Right.
if we're forced to do
already,
it, if we're forced to do it, we can do it. So continuing on unique challenges, that's certainly what is our biggest challenge that we've been fighting through as we're going through all of it. But also other finite resources, right? People, time, and money, which is tied to budget. But also as we look, what we've done, and I mean, you can imagine almost every second of every day. I mean, Dr. Watts is still interviewing people and things like that, but every time we're not in any other kind of meeting or Zoom meeting, we're back together talking about the numbers and schedules and how we're going to make this work and how we're going to make that work. So as we're looking through every section, and we'll get to that in a couple slides, at the elementary schools or at the middle school and high school, you know, it's not a one-size-fits-all even in our own district, and trying to figure out, you know, where we can put people and resources and make it work with the people, with the in-person or hybrid that, or remote that people select. There's limitations of physical spaces. We're meeting and exceeding all our safety requirements, all the things that are in the guidance from the Department of Health and the CDC in New York State. And so, you know, doing all of that. You know, most of our classrooms are all different sizes, as you know. Most of them can fit between 14 and 16 desks and properly socially distanced. Some are bigger and can fit more, some are smaller and don't quite get that amount. So again, as we're making our sections, we got to keep that in mind. The principals are working through that as well. And so it's just, there's been so much involved in all of the you know, different things that we're trying to do to make our decisions. We have to accommodate individuals with medical conditions. That's mainly staff. So Kristen has been keeping track of a list. We went through the list person by person today. You know, there's a couple of dozen, maybe 35, 40 people on the list of having their own health condition that makes them more at risk for this virus and for like negative effects of the virus. And so some of them are asking to be remote teachers. Some of them are asking for the face shields that we've been, you know, had donated to us, which we're grateful for. Some are asking for a barrier on their desks, like you see if you go to the bank or some of the grocery stores and things like that. We have some of those. We don't have one for everybody, but so some of those accommodations are things easy like that, or just PPE or some of the things that we can do, and some are you know, a lot more serious, that they have, you know, serious health conditions that really makes their doctors saying they should not be around people. And we have a few that haven't really been out and around people since March, and so we're trying to figure out, working with Erin closely, to figure out what legally we have to do and what, you know, morally and ethically we want to accommodate. So that's been a lot. Tenuous nature of the pandemic, the potential for ongoing and changing direction from New York State. You know, that's why this has to be a fluid document, but you know, as much as we've adapted to it and made our changes and really listening to input from everybody, and especially from the state and the different changes. When it first came out, it told us to put a fan in every room, and then 2 weeks later it told us the fans really blow the virus around and don't put a fan in any room. And remember, we've changed to those purifiers in 16 and 18 rooms, so we don't need the fans anymore. But the teachers actually asked me today, can somebody have a fan and blow it out the window, because that does seem okay. So, I mean, there's just so many changes to the guidance from everywhere, even the so-called experts. And, you know, people still talk about a second wave coming and all of that. So, although I did read right before I came that we might be close to a vaccine, and maybe that's coming in November or December. So that actually would probably ease some of the stress. But, you know, just the things that we're dealing with, I'm not trying to have a pity party for me and the cabinet, but there's a ton that we're dealing with every single day. I try to still keep my smile on my face at work, but some days it gets tough. But we do have a great team, not just the district administrators, but you know, we talk to the administrative group at least once a week, and the teacher group, and you know, all the different unions. I'll put that in. There's another slide coming up with that. But really, people have been fantastic, trying to come up with solutions and not just, you know, giving us problems. And needing to respond to the family's unique needs, situations, personal choices. So we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about, you know, giving that choice to families. Some districts have held tight not doing that. I'm not sure, again, I've said it before, what they gain from that. But, you know, we put the first survey out just to get a gauge from people how they were feeling. And then we put the actual, all right, now commit to one. And so we're really trying to be responsive to what the parents and families feel like is best for their situation. The results have varied by school, and so I said that a couple of times last time, but we didn't have the actual total numbers. These are the numbers as of this afternoon. I mean, we were still getting updated at one of the schools. I spoke to one of the assistants today who had made a couple home visits and got a couple more answers, so those are it. The survey is closed, obviously, at this point, but we're still trying to reach out to families, and there's still a handful, there's really not many. We don't know if they may have moved, but there's still a handful we haven't gotten to. There's the numbers. So we were steady at pretty close to 40% the whole time. In the beginning it was like 37, 38, but we went up to 40 fairly quickly and kind of stayed right there as people answered that those percentages stayed the same. So that helped with social distancing requirement, it helped with transportation, it helped with all those kinds of things. It gave different challenges that I just talked about, trying to make sure we have teachers for both sections, for an in-person section and for a remote section. But you see the breakdown, I don't have to read it all to you. We had some schools in the 50s that were remote and close to 50, and the lowest was School 18 at 31%, which is going to be important because we're actually going to try to do something different at 18. Their numbers, you know, without trying to get too in the minutia, I'll just give you try to give you a quick example of, you know, what we're dealing with. So if we had a school that had 40 third graders, let's say, so we had 2 sections, right? Before this all happened, we had 2 sections, 20 each, and that school had 2 teachers for third grade, and we were done. So out of those 40, if 12 decide they want remote, well, now we have 28 in person. These are the, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, have everybody feel sorry for all the stuff we're doing, but I just want people, especially board members, to get an idea of really the minutia that we're dealing with. This is every school and every grade level. So if that third grade class that had now 20 and 20 now is 28 in person and 12 remote, well, you can't have 28 in a class anymore, right? I just said it's between 14 and 16, so we can break that 28 into 14 and 14, but that's your 2 teachers. And now we got 12 remote kids that need to be taught by somebody, right? And we just went through the budget situation, so when we first did it and just broke it out and kept the in-person teachers in their regular sections, I think we needed, you know, to add 11 new teachers to teach all the remote sections. Well, obviously we can't even add 1 new teacher. So it required some creativity. It required some trying to, you know, think about it, and again, people have been great. I think it was 2 nights ago, I mean, I couldn't sleep because I was the one trying to crunch the numbers, you know, by myself at first. I mean, not that that was the first time we were doing it, but I was trying to really get to sections so we could try to start, and then got to cabinet and, you know, having everybody kind of look at it and think about and share different ideas. And, you know, again, we have some solutions. So some of those solutions are going to be, you can have 18, but you'd have 3 or 4 kids in an overflow room with a TA. Because the TAs, with the number of kids that are remote, we should have enough TAs in the district to help us with those kinds of situations. So if it was 17 or 18 or 19, we think we can do an overflow room. We also, if like the example I just gave, if there was 12 in third grade at one school, and there was also 10 at third grade at another school, then we were able to keep the third grader who was preparing all summer for a third grade classroom, and, you know, right now is the expert on third grade because that's what they've been planning for. They could have the 2 schools combined. So a couple of times that helped us out. We still were short. I mean, again, with 18's numbers, they had so many in school, with 70% of their kids coming in person, that their in-person numbers really were so big that required almost all of the staff that they currently have. So at 18, we're talking about doing a synchronous option, but not, and I might be jumping ahead to another slide, but I guess it doesn't matter. But not as synchronous, you know, we've got other things going on that I'll talk about in a minute, I guess. But at 18, we're going to try to, we're still finalizing it, but if there were 10 virtual kids in the 2 sections like I just talked about, we'd put 5 in each. Now, we wouldn't expect an elementary kid to log on at 7:30 and stay on until 2:15 the entire time. So the teachers will work with that. There are a lot of times where there's a 10, 12 minute, especially as part of Lucy Calkins, the units of studies things that we're focused on. There's a 10 or 12 minute mini lesson that everybody will get, and then there's breakout groups and breakout work that has to be done so they could log off and do that, log back on, and that kind of thing. So we're trying to, that's one of our options at 18. I think I'll move on because I think I'm getting to this stuff later on anyway. But there's your numbers. So before I get to some of those other things, what did we use to guide it? So daily in-person instruction we've already talked about for our ones that it's been shown that need it the most. So those are our elementary students, our youngest learners, our ELL, our English language learners, and our students in self-contained classes, right? We've said that from the beginning. Those are the ones that we're really going to focus on getting into school every single day. We want daily instruction provided by Troy teachers and Troy staff, right? So some districts, many of them actually, Dr. Watson and I are on meetings with other districts, almost every day, are using the BOCES, either Cap Region or Questar. They're sharing staff with other school districts. So we wanted our own teachers teaching our students. So that was one of our priorities as well. Keeping students and faculty in their home schools to the great extent possible. We do have some changes because of the numbers that I just talked about. But as we're crunching those numbers, we wanted to keep kids and their teachers the best we could. That was one of our guiding principles. In their home school. The receivership school. So we've been talking about School 2 for a while. They've been in receivership and are in having an improvement plan and a receivership plan. We didn't want to put any undue stress by adding students to them or pulling teachers, having shared students. And so we tried to keep the School 2 staff with the School 2 students because of that receivership situation they're in. Maintaining small class sizes, so in-person and remote. Again, in-person is kind of dictated by the social distancing. Again, I said before, there are some bigger rooms where we might be able to get 17 or 18. We can use the gym spaces. We can use some of the bigger art and music rooms if they're in some of the buildings. But for the most part, the in-person class size had to get reduced to the 14 to 16 range. And the remote, we're trying to be reasonable there. There was some remote grade levels that had 40 kids. You're certainly not going to have one teacher teach 40 kids remotely. So we tried to stay in that 25 range as a max. There were some that went higher than that, unfortunately, because of the budget constraints. And certainly maintaining a full range of our college classes, our advanced courses, our electives. Some of we had a meeting the other day, Dr. Watson and the achievers and the high school staff. Some of the remote students will have to change their electives. If you chose an elective of construction where you're going to work on the sheds and things like that, you certainly can't do that from your house. So there will be some changes there. But all of our advanced placement courses, all of our college and high school courses, that still will be in there. Dr. Watson, anything I missed in that slide?
Excellent.
Another day, Ed?
It's funny, we wrote in the front that we're all going to present it until we all have things there. And once I get rolling, it's hard for me to stop. So,
We know.
Sorry. Unique solutions. So, again, all of the different issues and problems and conflicts and blockages that we just discussed and priorities that we put in place, we had to come up with some unique solutions. And so, these aren't all of them that have been discussed, and I'm sure there are more that we'll come up with as we keep talking. Again, I really appreciate, from across the district, everybody being involved in the solution generation, and not just in development, and not just calling us with complaints. So we're going to maximize our technology. I mean, one of the great things the district has done, and the board, thank you for your support of it, is the technology that we have with the Chromebooks for every kid with the MX800s in the classrooms, with some of the other cameras and things that we got. Erin Cheevers and her team do a great job. So we're going to maximize that technology to be able to expand our teaching and learning opportunities for all students. Be able to adjust our model as it goes along, pivot back and forth if necessary. But I wrote in my first letter in that reopening plan, whatever you selected, in-person, hybrid, or remote, you're going to get a high-quality education and the kind of education that you've grown to expect from the Troy School District. The use of overflow, this is the slide I was kind of cheating onto. The use of overflow spaces, so I talked about that for some of the schools. Again, if you're at the 18-19 range, our TAs can help with that, and some of our complementary teachers will be able to help with that, and some of our other staff. Combination of classes to allow for virtual across schools and with different grade levels, to allow a third grade teacher to still be teaching third grade, but might have 10 from virtual from one school and 10 from another school, and that's their new class. Teaching and learning synchronously. So let me talk about that a little bit at the high school. So when we talked about our original remote plan, I think our plan, when we first did it, before we crunched all the numbers, before we looked at the schedules, we thought all the remotes would be separate. And then our last parent forum, when Dr. Watson put the remote plan together, we added a slide that said there will be some synchronous for remote only. We were thinking about the AP in college classes, like I just said. If 4 kids who are in AP Calculus chose remote, we're certainly not going to make a new section of AP Calc for those 4 kids. Those 4 kids would just synchronously be put in AP Calculus. Our P-Tech kids, some of our electives that are only 1 or 2 class offerings for those. So there's a lot of different samples of those. And talking, and Dr. Watson and I had 2 or 3 meetings with the scheduling team at the high school. It turned out that there were 30, don't quote me on the number, but I think it was like 38 or 39 doubletons, which means, like I just said before, there are 2 pre-calc classes that have 40 in each class, or excuse me, 40 total, so 20 in each class, and 12 of them chose remote. So you have to now have 3 sections, and we don't have the budget for that. So 39 or so of those, and then there were another 30-something singletons where that was happening. So it got to the point, as they were making it, that the conflicts were happening so much that we had to make a decision for budget reasons and for other reasons. There was some disagreement, I'll get to that in a minute in the slide, but the best thing for everybody was to make the high school fully synchronous. So if you're a high school remote only student, you already were going to have your classes from 8:30 to 3:15, and you were going to have first period math and second period. Remember the sample schedule that Dr. Watson put up in her remote plan was a full high school schedule. And it'll still be like that, but you'll be in your schedule with the hybrid kids at the same time. So as far as the teachers go, they were already expecting 10 in front of them and 10 at home, and now it's going to be 10 in front of them and 14 or 15 at home. The TTA was good about it. We had 2 or 3 great conversations about it. It's the best situation. It's going to help us go back and forth if we have to go from all virtual to all in person or anything like that. So anyway, that's fully synchronous will be at the high school. That's why I was kind of referencing at 18, when we say synchronous, it won't be like that. It won't be that we expect kids to get on at 7:30 and stay on until 2:15. But what we will expect is that they're in the class with the other kids, and the teachers will have to navigate that situation, and TAs will help with that as well, whether it be small groups and time for them to go off and come back on. And certainly at lunchtime and study halls at the high school or at the high school, they would have time to log off and be themselves. Certainly, Dr. Watson, interrupt me anytime. So that's synchronously. Partnership with CDTA. So we've been talking about CDTA since the beginning. One of the toughest social distancing thing for us was transportation. 1 to a seat. Really cut our capacity in each bus almost like a third, to a third, like cut it 2/3. So when we first heard that news and got that guidance, we were thinking we had to have triple the runs, and we were going to have to change start times and you know, add to our transportation budget and contract in ways we didn't want to. CDTA has been a great partner to work with so far. We haven't finalized anything yet, but we're getting close. And so it looks like, except for, and we'll be specific about the areas as soon as we know, but right now it's like the North 40 and Brunswick Road and those areas. Any area that CDTA does not readily go, Durham will still be picking up those students and those stops. So again, you won't have to guess. We will be coming out. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll be coming out with that information so you know who's getting a CDTA pass and who's going to be on a Durham bus. For the other kids, CDTA is going to, we're not giving it to us, we're going to purchase the all-access passes for those other students. So we talked about the downside of that is it's a little bit farther walk to get to the main CDTA streets. The good part of it is it's that kind of pass where you can use it in the evening, you can use it on the weekends, and so it's going to really benefit our students. Again, this is just for our high school students, but they will have one of those passes that they can get on CDTA to go to a job on the weekend or go to a relative's house or whatever it is. So again, it's not all finalized yet, but it will be in the next few days, and we will get that information out to everybody. I should stop there for a minute and also say that tomorrow all families will get a confirmation email and or text, depending on what they signed up for, or both, that just make sure that what we have on our record is what you selected when you did the survey. Because there are mistakes that are made when you're doing something like that on both ends, right? So each family will get an email or text, again, get a contact that says, our records show that you have selected in-person, but you don't need transportation, or you've chosen remote, or you've chosen in-person and you need transportation. And if there are questions or concerns, or a mistake was made, to contact your building principal. Also tomorrow, middle school and high school students will be getting their purple and gold assignments, so they'll know what groups they're in. We got a lot of questions along the way that said, if I have a kid in the middle school and high school, can we make sure they're in the same purple or gold? I'm sharing a ride with my next door neighbor, can we have the same purple or gold? The answer to those questions is yes, but some of those emails didn't have the names of the people. So that will also go out tomorrow that says, here's your assignment, purple or gold. If you need to make a change due to extenuating circumstances, being childcare, transportation, or immediate family member, things like we just talked about, just notify your school and we'll make some adjustments to those categories. We certainly will work with all the families on that. So that's all coming out tomorrow. Not on the slide, but right time to say it, I think. Improved sanitation and ventilation, all the cleaning products, the foggers, and all the other things that we've done. The purifier is a great example. When we first talked about it, we talked about the ventilation and opening windows, and we heard from a lot of people about the concern people had and the fear people had, and so we listened to it. And, we're not going to overreact to everything that's said to us, but when things are reasonable and we have a solution that isn't a reasonable solution, then we'll do it. And I think the gator masks are another one. When we first did that, and then that study came out, although I haven't seen any other studies to support it, but we've changed those to the masks, the regular cloth masks. So again, we're purchasing stuff and we're listening to people and trying to change with the times and make the best decision for kids. That's what we're trying to do over and over again. Flexible food distribution, so we are required, for the kids who are here in school, the middle school and high school we're working on, they're going to go to the cafeteria Right now, I think we're talking about having assigned seats, which is 1 per table, you know, or maybe kitty corner on 2 per table, but kitty corner so that they're 6 feet apart. We're trying to figure out how we're going to have them go get the food, still working out the logistics for that. At the elementary level, we're working with, Whitson's, almost said something, so Whitson's has been really great, and so we're going to, you know, probably deliver to the classrooms, or in some buildings, people may go down and get the meals, but it'll be different in every school. Again, we're trying to, you know, every school has different challenges with elevators and no elevators, and other ways or other reasons that it can't happen, but Winston's has been great, and so we'll make sure it works in every school. And then for the kids who are home, we'll do it similar that like we did in the spring. We'll have grab-and-go meals available for pickup for anyone that wants them.
At the high school? Like we did before?
No, we're gonna do it at each school this year,
Oh, that's nice.
which I think will be better for those families.
There will be it'll go off, but there will be a limited time.
Yeah, there'll be
All day
Right,
long.
right.
Yeah, there'll be a time, we'll get that out too as soon as we finalize it, but there'll be a time frame that you can come and pick up your meal at the elementary school that's closest to you, kind of. What was our process to arrive? And I've already kind of said it, but it's worth saying again, collaboration at the highest levels, it's really been fantastic, and you know, I'm hoping that it continues that way, and that's not just, you know, again, I'm not just talking about, you know, people that are at this table, but all of the administrators, all of, you know, the teachers once a week, CSEA, and the nurses and OTPTs, the new union, and just like all the staff members, just people that, you know, you call and talk to and have a suggestion, or they call and send an email. So it's really been great work. And you know, have we thought about this? The reopening committee was a good example of that early on. I know, you know, that's, you know, doesn't meet anymore, but it was just really great collaboration in that committee, and it has extended, you know, through today. You know, we had meetings with the administrators yesterday and the teachers today, so it continues on. All the departments generating ideas. Dr. Watson and I met a couple of times with the curriculum leaders for art and music, and it's not a curriculum leader for PE, but Mr. Reinisch and Mr. Wallen about PE, and just trying to, you know, the people that are doing the work are often the ones that have the great answers. And they came, and media, Michelle Lawrence for the media. You know, they came with some great ideas. Some of them said we probably can't do that right now, but you know, a lot of them we were like, you know, really blown away about, you know, how creative they were, and so that everybody's trying to make it work. Everybody is trying to step up. We had a theme maybe 5-6 years ago that said whatever it takes, which was our theme for the year at that time. Maybe it was longer than that ago. Anyway, that's what people are doing right now. They're just really stepping up to trying to help us figure this out, and we certainly appreciate it. The partnerships is CDTA, but also Department of Health. I mean, I didn't mention them yet. We meet with them weekly. Just, you know, again, even outside agencies have been really great. I think everybody knows, you know, what people in education are going through right now. Lively discussions and disagreements about the best solution. So, you know, we don't always agree on everything, but we have, you know, that, to me, that's a great team, and that's great relationships that we've built where we can have some lively disagreements in the room because everybody's trying to figure out the best solution for students, and that's the key. And so, you know, it's no good if, you know, every time I say something, everybody just says, yep, that's good, we'll just do whatever you say. That's not how it works. And, you know, people get to say no to that. Well, I don't mean the board. I don't mean the board, I mean the people who work here. So, I mean, the last week, we've really kind of grinded out. Well, how about this? How about that? Nope, not that. How about this? I don't think that works. All right. So what happens is we end up with great solutions because, you know, everybody compromises a little bit. Everybody hears everybody else's perspective and train of thought, and it works to make sure that we're, again, making the best solutions for students, which we always want to do. And then multiple options, which I already said. These are the multiple options that we didn't say. So one of the things we talked about yesterday was combining some of those sections. I talked about third grade having 10 at one school and 12 at another, combining them. But we also talked about combining 10 in kindergarten and 10 in first and having like a multi-age classroom. Talked to a couple of principals about that. They didn't like it. You know, they said with the units of study and the things they're doing, you know, it would be too hard for remote teachers to try to keep separate those multi-age classes. They do work in some situations, so we threw it out there as an idea. You know, but it turned out after we talked about it, that probably wasn't the best idea. So, and you know, virtual schools, having, you know, fully remote, you know, a fully remote principal. But again, I don't think that would have worked budget-wise once we got into it. But there were a lot of things that, you know, we're throwing out there, and not just us, but a lot of people, and you know, trying to think our way through it and see if it actually works. And then great professional development. I put in the Friday report last week. We had our technology days like we have every summer, but they were more important than ever this year. I mean, really some great ideas about how we're going to navigate this new world where technology is so much more important. How about that slide, Dr. Laza?
Yeah, we did have one thing to add, Mr. Montano.
Oh, you're going to talk about disagreeing with me?
He was just saying that it's taken our team a few years, but we have gotten there. Ways and do that.
I will say, okay, I agree with that. Who said that?
He said for Mr. Carmelo to accept that.
To accept that.
We're in a very good place.
Yes, I think I always accepted it. I think, Adam, you told me one time, it takes me 3 or 4 times to hear your idea before I say, all right, let's think about that. That's how I am at home, too, so I don't take offense to it. Thank you for that addition to it. I probably have said this enough, too, but I think it's important to keep saying we're trying to be transparent. We're trying to have open and active communication. So this is our third board presentation talking about reopening. We had our 3 parent forums. You can see, you know, the first couple, 500 and 600, and then I think it went down because I think people were starting to get the idea and starting to feel more comfortable. But we also, if I skip down a couple bullets, we had the dedicated email and social media. Erin Clary, I mean, I can't say enough how great a job she's done. She's been the one mainly monitoring and manning those always the social media, but and that email as well. So it's been over 500 you know, email exchanges or social media answers, you know, answers on Facebook or telephone calls or you know, just all the different things. So people are asking and pressing concerns, and we are answering them. So you know, I think it's really been great in that regard. The staff forums that we had a little over 200 at each one, so over 400 total, which, you know, is a good portion of our total staff, and I've said before, regular communication with all of our bargaining units about everything that's going on. Our webpage, Erin Clary gets credit for that as well, and should be commended for it. She continuously updates the FAQs. When she's reading the emails or she's seeing comments on Facebook, as they get repeated, you know, she puts it on the FAQs because it's obviously something that more than one person is asking about. So, you know, keep looking back at that webpage. It's got all the presentations. It's got all the recordings of all of our forums and presentations, and it's also got an FAQ section that is updated continuously. And in that vein, to keep the open active communication, there's a bunch of people, I'm not on there, which is awesome, actually. I probably should have been one of those.
Because it's a public forum, we just listed the people that parents might call with specific questions about their child.
Yeah. People call our number anyway, so but we can add that to the page if we need to. But those are, if you have specific questions about those categories, it's just, again, more chance for us to try to keep that communication going. And it's been a grind, and we're getting close to that start, but we're really, I mean, we are excited for the new school year like we always are. It's going to be a different opening. You know, that's usually a time when some of you board members come, where we get in the auditorium and the music's playing, and it's just great, great positive energy. And we all give our speeches, which are, you know, it's you know, Tom and Dr. Watson and myself, and it's also all the union heads. And they're all, we never collaborate on the speeches, but they're always similar themes about positive and working together and having a great school year. And you know, we're still going to do those, but they're going to be recorded now. And you know, we're still going to have a great school year, and I'm convinced of that. And we're going to keep going with all the great things that we've accomplished over the last however many years, and have this year be a great school year as well. That was way longer than I think you guys wanted, but
No, it's good.
I was well.
Important.
Thank you.
You're on a roll.
Questions? Comments?
So that took care of reopening and budget.
That was reopening and budget, and again, thank you to the cabinet for helping put that together, and sorry I didn't let you talk much.
Excellent work.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions, comments? Okay, let's move right on to the district goal discussion.
So,
Keep it going.
let me get that for you, Mr. Brown, sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Carney.
So every year we have our district goals. They've been pretty much the same. We developed these now probably going on 9 years ago. They've changed a little bit each year, but for the most part, the first one is student achievement at the 3 through 8 level based on the state assessments. And this is the meeting where usually Dr. Watson and I will be presenting that big long presentation about how we did last year and what are our plans to fix the things that didn't go well.
My favorite.
You know, just a little reminder and a chance to brag about the district. Remember that steady, continual, consistent increase in proficiency from when these exams started. Now it's probably 7, 8 years, 9 years ago. But the percent proficient ELA and math 3 through 8 district-wide grew every single year. And, you know, then we point out like certain grade levels were in the, you know, above the state average, and certain grade levels were really in the schools themselves all showing that positive trend. Well, there were no 3 through 8 assessments last year, so there was no presentation on that stuff this year. I guess that reopening presentation I just did will satisfy the plans that we have, at least for right now, for starting the school year. The graduation rate, I mean, we certainly will get that. That's never available right now. That'll be coming in a couple of months. I'll share that to the board when we get it. Again, another source of pride for the Troy School District is our graduation rate. It's been in that mid to high 80s for several years now. We anticipate it staying and even going up this year, so I'll let you know when that comes. The other two, one is about suspensions that we always talk about when the principals do their presentations, and improved attendance was the new one. Remember, chronic absenteeism was a new requirement from SED that we were going to be you know, held accountable for, and so we thought it was important to put as a goal last year. The problem with those two, it's not a problem, but we closed down in March, and so the data really doesn't, I mean, our attendance went way up because, you know, at that time, from March to June, the guidance was, you know, people just defaulted to present, so our attendance obviously is going to be skewed in a positive direction. Now SED has been clear that student attendance has to be taken whether you're in person or remote. So, you know, a teacher will have to keep track of which students are logging in and which are not, which is going to be good because you know, the students that did get lost in the shuffle last year and were hard to connect with, that will not be happening this year. We'll have to make sure we're engaging. So, but to compare last year's numbers to this year's or year before to last year doesn't make much sense because of that 4 months that we had. Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
That's right. I still think it's, number 4, the improved attendance, I still think it's more important now than ever.
Oh, I agree.
I think we should definitely leave it there.
Yeah.
Just because those few months were skewed, that's, I mean, it is what it is, and we're moving forward. But being that, you know, there is this remote learning, and they still have to take attendance, I think it's really important for them.
Yes, I'm sorry if I think I
That's
was
right.
given the wrong impression.
No, that's all right.
I was talking about why we really can't give an update on how we, because usually this is the time of year we tell you how we did on these,
Right.
and then we reassign them for next year.
And we know that.
But I agree that the 4th one that we added last year is more important than ever, and it's going to be important for those remote teachers or the teachers of the remote students to understand that, not just the in-person kids, but the remote kids have to be held accountable for their attendance. So my suggestion, I wrote it in the Friday report, is these goals have served us well. I think they're a good impetus of why that trend has been continuously improving in our achievement and in all these parameters. I think it gives us a high enough goal to reach without being so high that we lose focus on it. So I welcome some discussion, but my recommendation is that we keep these another year and reevaluate again next summer.
I just don't understand the 2%, because we don't know what the 2% is off of, because we don't know what the number was. Why wouldn't we just say to whatever from your experience you feel would be a realistic amount? It's not going to be 100%, right? There's going to be some people who are chronically for reasons beyond their control. Why wouldn't the goal be to maintain a certain percentage of, to say like that the number of students, I don't know how to word it.
I know what you're
grammatically.
saying,
But
actually
it's just
have-
that 2% doesn't really make sense because I don't know what it's coming off of.
Yeah, it's a good question. Maybe it should be 2% of the year before, which is apples to apples. Go ahead, Donna.
I was just gonna say that the
That's
state
what we did.
assigns us improvement targets, and their target was that the percentages of students who are chronically absent will decrease by 1%, and so we wanted to be a little more aggressive than that state target, which is why we picked 2%, so we didn't just pick it randomly, we based it on that, but,
But what's the number?
I think what
that-
Stephanie's saying is last year's is going to be skewed, like we just said.
Well, that's okay,
So it
but we
doesn't
know
make
that.
sense to go 2% from that one. We probably should go 2% from the year before,
yeah.
right?
So it would have to be from the year before.
But I think Stephanie's saying, why not say we expect 90% to come to school, right?
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
actually 99.9.
Well, it is different in
Those are-
every
yeah, those-
school.
Yeah,
so-
and those are different measures. So chronic absenteeism, it's a good discussion to have. And we actually talked about that when we presented this possible goal to the board last year. We talked about which way do we want to go. Do we want to have a student attendance rate? And we fluctuate depending on the school. If you take the whole year, on a normal year, not last year, but a normal year, it's like 87 or 88 to 92 or 3 or 4. That's our range if you talk about the full year of our student attendance rate. The problem is the kids that attendance is really negatively affecting are these chronically absent kids. So you could have a 90% attendance rate, but and what that means a daily rate, right? I mean, so on any given day, the average number of kids that were there were 90% of the total population. But if the same 10% are the ones that have been out for 50 days, that's different than if the 90% is a different 10% every year and maybe nobody's affected negatively. If somebody's absent, just 5 times during the year, but they're part of that 10% that aren't there on a daily basis, different. So I think, it's, again, the board can change that. We thought, again, because the guidance, like Donna said, came from the state about really focusing on those chronically absent kids, because those are the ones that are at risk of dropping out. Those are the ones that are not being successful academically. So focus on them rather than focusing on trying to get your daily attendance rate up. That's why we made the decision last year.
And chronic absenteeism is one of the level 1 indicators, so it's.
And it's one of the
statewide
state
accountability
indicators now.
measures.
Yeah. Which was similar to like doing the graduation rate and the 3 through 8, because those were all state indicators, which it gives us a good barometer of what to look at.
I think too, that several years ago, back when Tom and I first got on the board, we didn't have, the board didn't really know our absenteeism in our classrooms until we started asking for reports. And I think right along, I think no matter who's been on or off the board, kids don't learn unless they're in front of a teacher. Now it's a different story, in front of a computer, But I think it's important that we keep this here some way or in some form. I mean, I don't have an issue with saying 2 points each year for the next 5 years, basing it off of not last year and the year,
Oh, we can't.
Yeah, we can, I mean, I think what I would suggest is, but again, I want to listen to the discussion, is keep the wording, understand next summer when we report, the year in between 2 years ago and last year, we probably have to give you both of those years to kind of get a gauge on how we did.
What if you, is there a way, I don't know if there is, but is there a way of doing it through March 15th? I mean, this is the year ended March 15th, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but see, yeah, we can do that.
Just to have some kind of indicator?
Yeah, we can do that. Tara can certainly run that.
Yeah.
To be chronically absent, you have to be out 10%, well, he can do 10% of those days.
You could do 10%
So that
of
they were on
just
pace.
September.
Yeah, they were on pace to be that if they kept going. Yeah, we could do that. That's a
I
good
mean,
call.
it's
I'll
something,
get that.
it's some, to have some idea for
Yeah, I'll get that.
the 2019-20 school year.
Yeah, and then for the 2021, then we can even compare those two, and then compare the year before for the whole year. I like that. I think the wording can stay the same, but I can get you that information. I like that. Thank you.
We're glad John Carmelo likes that.
That's how this district rolls.
I'm sorry, I just, maybe just deserved that.
Then I have to say it 4 times.
The board never has to say it for you. Okay,
And
so are we good to keeping it the same then, and then, but just talking about that when we're actually comparing them?
hang on. Anybody else on number 4? Okay, on number 2, you were starting to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
Again, there's no reason to remove this. I think it's got to stay here, and it's going to be. I just think we should keep it. I think things are going to be more heightened this year.
Yeah.
So I think it's even more. Again, it's another one that's even more important than it was.
Yeah, I'd like to keep all 4. Again,
That's my opinion.
they've served us well in all the buildings, for building leaders and building leadership teams to make their goals for the year and that kind of thing.
I do know when the elementary schools presented to us, this was one of the things they every one of them talked about.
Yes,
I mean, they talk about it, and you can see what's going on in the building. So I think it's really important.
And again, it leads to academic success. All of it is about absenteeism and reducing suspensions, and all of that is to keep kids here so that we have the academic success increase.
Did we have anything else on that, on the goals? Everybody good with keeping them and rolling them into the 2021 school year?
I'm good with the top.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Me too.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Matthew said yes.
Good. Thank you. That's it for my 3 presentations, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate the
I
time.
think Rosemary just asked if we're voting on that.
I'm sorry?
They'll be voted on next time. I'm sorry, good question, Rosemary. They'll be officially voted on next board meeting. I'll get them with the 2021 name on the top, and then we'll put them on the next board agenda.
All right.
Okay, I'll move that back then. So action items, superintendent recommendations, human resources, staff matters, unclassified, motion for consent agenda items 1 through 10.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Superintendent recommendations, human resources, staff matters, classified motion for consent agenda items 1 and 2.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Superintendent recommendations programs, motion for consent agenda items 1 through 10.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's see, superintendent recommendations, business finance, motion for consent agenda items 1 through 5.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Discussion of future meetings. Our next meeting will be on September 16th here at the middle school at 6 p.m. And then our October meetings will both be here at the middle school on October 7th at 6:30, and then on the 21st at 6 p.m. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add before we adjourn?
If we find out that we're gonna go remote, will somebody make sure they reach out, because our next meeting will be all in person.
Oh, yes, yeah, that's actually what I just wrote. We'll find out, I'll talk to Aaron, but also
Board meeting?
check, yeah.
Okay.
If the deadline was the 4th, then we'll know by Friday. I'll hopefully have it for the Friday reports. If we all come, then we'll probably set it up a little bit different so that the tables are a little more spread out.
And it still won't be open to the public.
Won't be open to the public, I imagine, is what the rule will be, and then we can still stream it, but we can have our tables kind of spread out.
Maybe we just make the one before that up here. So we do.
How long they come now? Takes me a few minutes anyway down.
We'll have room, there's plenty of room, socially distant. Anyone have anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone, and
Thank
thank
you.
you.